Good evening, Toastmasters. How many of you have heard the name of Martin Luther King, Jr.? Well, as for me, he has been one of the most prolific speakers the last century. I've always been fascinated by MLK. The speech which I'm going to deliver today is I Have a Dream speech, which was delivered by Martin Luther King before a crowd of 250,000 people in Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. There is one more special thing about this. This speech was delivered exactly 55 years before today. Today is 28 August 2018, which is also my better half's birthday. But exactly 55 years before, 28 August 1963, this speech was delivered. Weaving in from references to country's founding fathers and the Bible, King used universal themes to depict the struggles of African Americans. Before closing with an improvised riff of his dreams of equality. The elegant speech was immediately recognized as a highlight of a successful protest and has been endured as one of the signature movements of the civil rights movements.
I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
I'm happy to join with you today in what will go down in the history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 5 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as the great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro still is sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives in the lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still missing, languishing in the corners of American society, and finds himself in the exile in his own land. We all have come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlight path of racial justice. Now is the time to change racial injustice with a solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice ring out of all God's children. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted citizenship rights. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high planes of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. and the marvelous new militarism which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to the distrust of all the white people. For many of our white brothers have evidenced by their presence here today, and they have come to realize that their destiny is a part of our destiny. So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream which is rooted in the American dream. I have a dream. One day, this nation will rise up and live up to the true meaning of its creed. We hold this truth to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit together at the tablehood of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day in Alabama, with its vicious racist, with its governors having its lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with their white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall get skirted, every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places plain and the crooked places will be made straight. And before the Lord will be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith I go back to the south with. With this faith, we will be able to heave out the mountains of despair of the stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the genuine discords of our nation into beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom forever, knowing that one day we will be free. And I say to you today, my friends, let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the mighty Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. And not only there, let freedom ring from the stone mountains of Georgia. Let freedom ring from the Lookout Mountain in Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill, every molehill in Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when this happens, and we allow the freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join their hands and sing in the words of old Negro, spiritual free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.